War is raging, government is stealing our freedom, food processing plants are burning, and gun sales are through the roof. You're in the right place. This is The Prepared Mind.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Prepared Mind channel. Don't forget, you need deplorable coffee if you're a deplorable American. That's right, deplorable. A word that I don't think any of us ever use more than once or twice, maybe in a spelling bee, maybe in a spelling quiz, but on the street. But Hillary made it famous, and here we are, folks. It is Friday. It is a Friday free for all. Get your questions into Mr. Uman, because we're going to go shotgun style, where it's me, you, me, you, me, you. Instead of just a long 30-minute monologue, Fridays we like to mix it up. And here we go. Oh, by the way, yes, Sunday Night Live. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to cover everything. And it's your show on Sunday more than any other day of the week. I share with you Monday through Friday. We each get 30 minutes. Sometimes I take a little more. But on Sunday, it's completely up to you guys to pick the topics, the subjects, etc. So I expect to see you Sunday, 6 p.m. And if you need to get prepared and you're not 100% there already, well, you better start getting busy. Go to thepreparedmind.club. Many of you are there right now as we're starting this video. So let's get down and into it. We all know the American national anthem, right? We love to say rockets and bombs and missiles, right? We love that. In Canada, their anthem is called "Oh Canada." So I'm going to start with this one. Oh shit, because oh Canada, President Trump is going to knock Canada as a nation, not the good people, but the stupid Canadian government, going to knock it off of its soapbox. All trade discussions are terminated. Why? Because Canada decided it wants to tax digital services, right, on American tech companies. Interesting. This sort of stuff used to always happen, and we didn't know it was happening. American-made products, as few of them as they are, well, if they go to Canada or Europe, or over to China or Japan or Australia, everyone tariffs the shit out of America, but hey, Trump is doing something. He's doing something. And he's putting it straight, and I'm all for it, folks. I am all for it. You know, let's just tear the Band-Aid off and start fixing some shit. Okay, again, I know Friday Free for All catches people off guard. Get your questions in right away. Mr. Uman, do you have a topic that's on your mind or out in the audience right out the gate? As I suspected. Get your questions in. And this one's from Badass Diving Frog. And he says, John, Anthony has been called back to court. They tried to say they were broke while hiding $1.4 million. He's talking about Carmelo Anthony. Am I correct? Yeah, the little murderous thug. Is that what we're talking about here? Yeah. I yesterday the news said they filed and said he was poor and he needs a public defender. After his family received $1.4 million in GoFundMe, I thought it was only $600,000 or $700,000. Well, sounds like they've been hiding some money. Yep. They were playing the Jeffersons. They moved on up out into the suburbs and were spending money like drunk sailors. And then they remembered, oh shit, we need to pay for an attorney. But rather than that, they went on defense welfare. That's what they want. Sounds like court has called them in to say, no, this ain't happening. I guess we're going to find out. I haven't followed the story heavily today. I just know that They're grifters. They're shitheads. They're just playing this. You know, if Carmelo Anthony, Caramel, that guy, if he thinks he's going to get out of this, like he's going to convince a jury to believe him, I don't know. I guess they could, but guy's an asshole. He just is. You know, wow. Just wow. You know, it's always an indictment of a family or a group of people or a community when their actions reveal exactly how low a lowlife they are. And these people are basically lowlifes. No surprise for me. I tell you what, though, I have a lot of interesting, very fascinating news coming out of the Supreme Court. But before I do that, before we get to that, in fact, you guys may have some comments about the Supreme Court today. Thank you, Badass Diving Frog. You guys may have some comments today about the Supreme Court, but I've got one today about Mexico. Oh, yeah. Mexico is now put on the list of United States of America adversaries. This is going to shake up the North American continent, folks. Trump will not be intimidated. And it's here's the quote: not just against Iran, but also against Russia, against China, and against Mexico, against any foreign adversary. Right? That has been declared at the national media level. So it's finally been accepted that Mexico is now anti-American. So Trump, as far as I'm concerned, should pull all companies out of Mexico and say, nope, we are not buying anything from you guys down there, or we're just going to tariff the shit out of you guys. Right? Let Mexico have their bills paid by China, Russia, and Iran. Now, I don't have any problem with the Mexican people, folks. I have problems with Mexican drug cartels, Mexican gangs, and Mexican politicians. That's who my problem is with. Mexico helped facilitate the invasion of our country. I am sure at least half of the illegals that made it into America came through Mexico, at least half. More probably closer to 75, 80%. The others being boated in and flown in by plane. Mexico said, yeah, you go right ahead. We'll bring all these illegals from around the world, funnel them up through Mexico, and shove them across the border. Crazy business, folks. But yeah, Mexico, that's going to shake things up. Mexico is a big supplier of natural resources, metals, minerals, but the world, or at least the United States of America, we don't have to have Mexico. And Trump's tariffs are starting to have a positive effect. It's not going to be fast, folks. It's never fast, and it's never easy either. But apparently, companies are hiring Americans to work where illegals were arrested and thrown out of the country. How about that? Companies are starting to move their businesses back into the country. How about that? We need to become an industrial powerhouse again, and hopefully we get there. But never underestimate the short-sightedness and low IQ of politicians and their willingness to take bribes and enrich themselves and line their pockets with your money on the process. All right, Mr. Uman, it is the Friday free for all. What do we want to talk about next? It is up to you guys, and it's Redneck Roughneck. He says, them Democrats are flipping out over the Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court putting them district judges in their place, not a big win, but a win. Well, I'll tell you what, I actually think it is a big win. I'm going to take what you say, and I think it's far more important than what is being credited, right? President Trump today announced he's going full steam ahead. Full steam ahead, right? Over what? He said removing birthright citizenship. What is that? Well, that was citizenship to put former slaves on equal footing with Americans, right? Granting them citizenship is what that was about. Not sneak into the country, have a baby, and then claim your baby's an American citizen. Yeah, that is going to be ended now. What else is Trump wanting to end? He wants to end and will end sanctuary city funding. In other words, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, you are not going to get any more money. And the little courts cannot stop you. Just like they can no longer stop the removal of illegals who are claiming their anchor baby is going to keep them here. Trump is suspending refugee resettlement. The American government, using your and my tax money, doesn't need to resettle refugees. Suspend that. They don't get to come to America on our dime and live off of us. He is freezing unnecessary funding throughout all bureaucracies. Good. Remember when Trump said, no more USAID, no more USAID, no more taking our money and giving it to foreign nations and giving it to foreign non-government organizations so they can turn around and bribe Democrats and rhinos, politicians, using that money to fund riots, protests, anti-American propaganda. No more of that. And then, remember when the court said, oh, you can't stop those contracts. The government has to pay that money out. Right? That was little judges getting in the way. And he's going to end taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries for freaks. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have been paying for that too. And Trump can now say, you're done, right? Yes, we voted for this. And Trump now sounds like he's done with the games. And if he's going to be done with the games, redneck, roughneck, we need Vice President Vance to act and take control of the Senate. Remember, the vice president of the country is also the president of the Senate. He needs to bitch slap Senator Thune and push him aside. And he needs to take over. The vice president needs to take over control of the Senate. Get rid of this parliamentarian. That's a very colorful name. But we don't have parliament. We have Congress. We have representatives. We don't have a parliament. Anyways, fuck it. I know it's just language, but that's what they use. They use the language to control us. The parliamentarian is not elected. How do they get control over legislation? Well, when the leader of the Senate wants legislation destroyed, that's how they do it. Senator Thune, a Republican, is a sellout and a traitor in my book. That's all he is. Now, back to what is this Supreme Court decision? Well, it's telling the lower courts, this is the Supreme Court ruling that the little district courts don't have authority over the president. Right. Fucking finally, the Supreme Court says what needed to be said and ruled in a way to recognize their authority. The Supreme Court has ruled that nationwide injunctions by these little district courts have exceeded their authority. Well, but wait a minute, John. Doesn't the Supreme Court exist in the Constitution? Yes, it does. We have the executive branch, the president, the legislative branch, Congress, and the judicial branch is the United States Supreme Court. I don't think a lot of people, and it was a good refresher to learn this, that district courts are taken care of, set up by Congress. So these district courts have exceeded their congressional authority. Congressional authority. In other words, the Congress created these district courts to try and make rulings on congressional laws. Congress's laws don't have anything to do with the Constitution. That has to do with regulating corporations and interstate commerce, things of that nature. These district courts actually have zero jurisdiction over anything the president does. The president is exercising presidential executive authority. These Congress created federal district courts have nothing to do with the president or the Constitution with respect to his authority. So this clears a path for full speed ahead deportation, full speed ahead cutting funding, full speed ahead destroying bureaucracy. In other words, Congress gave these federal courts funding and limited authority, not constitutional review of presidential powers. That falls literally only on the Supreme Court. And they can try and check those powers. So once again, fucking finally, the Supreme Court has put these district courts in their place, which is in the little kid table in the corner of the room. Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Mr. Uman, I brought in 2 of my news articles to respond to Redneck Roughneck. So I just kind of piled on there. It is now your guys' turn once again. Get your questions in, get your comments in. This is the Friday free-for-all where we shotgun back and forth. We always start out with a blast, and then we have more people on X joining as the show goes. So you latecomers to the party on this Friday free-for-all, do me a favor, if you will. Get your questions in now, because I'm not going to wait till the half hour to get to them. Ooh, man, who's up next? We've got Roy Stonerook, who's becoming a regular, and I love it. He says, Trump's big, beautiful bill, BBB. I just fucking hate that, because Biden had BBB also, the Build Back Better. How'd that work out? Anyways, Roy says Trump's BBB includes no tax on tips and no tax on overtime pay. My CPA mentioned that only applies to income tax on the big beautiful bill. Many people may still get hit by the IRS with Social Security and Medicare. Prepare. That's probably good advice. It's probably good advice, because we have learned that Congress passes a bill, the House and the Senate, it goes to the president's desk, and then that bill is interpreted by the bureaucracies, right? The IRS, Social Security, right? If it has to do with guns, it goes to the ATF. If it has to do with this or that, it goes to different bureaucracies. That's where the regular district courts come into play, dealing with legislation like the big, beautiful bill, which I'm not thrilled about, but, here we are. In any event, I think Roy's advice is extremely important. You may get screwed, because once these bureaucracies get the big, beautiful bill, they're going to interpret it however they want. So you may end up having to pay back taxes. Don't make that mistake. Right back in 2020, we were told, right, or 2021, right, we were given money by the government. I think I got $1,700 in a check. And when it came to the tax returns, guess what? Guess who had to pay it back? There was no giveaway. It was no sorry we fucked you up. It's no we didn't mean to destroy your business. It was just a big fuck you. Here's $1,700. Now give it back. They called it a loan or some shit. So that's a problem. Until this is settled, my recommendation is keep track of your tips and what taxable amount you would have paid, and save that in some form or fashion, whether you save it in cash or in precious metals, silver and gold, whatever you got to do, because you may have to pay it back again. So, that is a great example, Roy, that and thank you, Uman, for putting that up, following my description of the difference between Supreme Court ruling on the Constitution and these lower district courts having authority from Congress so that they could be used to rule on interpreting their little statutes. But they aren't allowed to rule on the Constitution. That's beyond and above their congressional authority. Now, speaking of the Supreme Court, I want to revisit this one more time. The Supreme Court also ruled. This is a big Supreme Court week. In fact, Amy Coney Barrett, who is a complete sellout piece of shit, Supreme Court justice, actually lit some dynamite up on the Supreme Court's token retard, the DEI nominee, Ketanji. Is it Brown Jackson or Jackson Brown? In either event, it doesn't matter, right? Because she's an idiot. It's worth reading if you can find it. She cuts her down pretty hard, but she's still a loser. I'm talking about not just Ketanji Brown Jackson, but Amy Coney Barrett. Regardless, the Supreme Court majority has now ruled again this week, a lot of good rulings, that parents can opt out their children of classes with LGBTQ books, curriculum, porn, whatever it is they're pushing. Parents can say, no, sorry, protecting my kids from you freaks in the school. What I want to know is, why was this ever a fucking question? How can a school mandate that your kids have to put up with drag queens and transgenders and homosexuals telling them how to have anal sex? Since when was that ever a fucking question? And when? Well, isn't that a crime? I thought exposing children to pornography was a crime. It's called grooming, right? These grooming faggots made it a big deal and pushed all this shit. Well, I think they pushed a little hard, a little fast, and a little too far. And they got caught, and now they're done. Supreme Court says you don't have to have your kids put up with that shit. But I'm going to ask this question. Why would you leave your kid in a public school, period? Literally these days. Okay, someone's got to be at home to watch them. Why doesn't a neighborhood, a 1 mile square unit, right? Okay, all parents who want your kids taught by one of us who's an official teacher with a teaching credential, right? And learn from a computer. Don't we have computers? Don't we have the internet? Isn't every little single thing ever thought of and created in the world now, in the World Wide Web of information? Why do you need to send your kids to school where they're going to be, well, if the school gets their way, indoctrinated into hating America, hating the parents, hating whites, indoctrinated into hating everything American, wanting it destroyed, as well as destroying themselves and sterilizing themselves and mutilating themselves? It's crazy. Crazy shit. Anyway, Supreme Court doing a good job this week. Which means what? What's that mean, man? If they're doing good this week, next week they're going to completely fuck up again? The Supreme Court has been incredibly, in my opinion, inconsistent. All right, if we shall. Mr. Uman, let's roll on with the crowd. What do you guys want to talk about out there? It is, well, almost as much as Sunday Night Live. Friday, the free-for-all is your show as well. And we got Mike Cruz Sr. checking in. He says, John, I hear this buzz about deporting this New York communist shithead running for mayor. Yes, there is a law that was passed. Congress passed it. President signed it. It's a very old law, but it's still on the books. It hasn't been repealed. It did not sunset. Well, it may have been buried collecting dust and moths. It's now been shaken out and blown off. It has to do with communism, right? Any immigrant that was that lied about their communist affiliation and support, they can be deported. And in fact, there's more going on about this pile of shit communist Muslim that's coming out. his naturalization papers, it is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, his naturalization papers are not finalized. He's still not actually a full American citizen. We've got a lot of problems with this guy. There's a lot of buzz about him. I think that they popped the cork on the champagne for this fucking clown too soon. But isn't that just like a Democrat? To pop their cork thinking they're going to win. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to be elected. I'm not saying he wouldn't be sworn in as the mayor. But I will say, I'm sure he's committed many crimes. So let's back things up. This clown, this anti-American, cop-hating, law-hating, Constitution-hating, anti-American scumbag from Africa. Did I mention he's a Muslim and a communist? Anyways, he shows up and reveals that he's probably lied on his naturalization papers. That's fraud. That's perjury. And that means he can be expelled. But I'm not counting on that, and I'll tell you why. Ilhan Omar came here, and she got her brother into the country by claiming that's her husband. She married her brother. That's a form of, polygamist fraud. And she's a complete anti-American, and she says she represents Somalia. Somalia is not a state in America, so how can the state or nation of Somalia be represented in our Congress? Well, that's what she claims, right? There's many people that are here in America that shouldn't be, and a lot of them are dangerous politicians. This guy is going to, what he's done is he's drawn attention to this old law on communism. And he's drawing attention to the fact that he's from another country. And the people are continuing to wake up, Mike, with respect to the Jihad Joe Islamic intifada as well as invasion. They're revealing themselves online. They're going on social media and spreading what it is they do. They're admitting that the Quran is an instruction book on how to invade and take over a country. They have no interest in assimilating. They have no interest in learning the Constitution, which should be a requirement for coming here. They have no interest in obeying the law, being decent. They just want to be fucking crazy, stupid Muslims and rape your wives and children and daughters. They want to steal your property. They want you to have to pay money for not being a Muslim or just fucking kill you, because that's what the Quran says. It is a cult of death. Now, the other thing people are waking up to in this country is the fact that people of the Jewish faith may not be the good guys that they wanted us to believe. The Talmud is being talked about more and more often. That is, we talk about as Christians having the Old and New Testament, right? The Old Testament starting with the Torah written by Moses, supposedly, right? And that's all the Old Testament stuff. The history of the Israelites, and then the Jews come into play in there. And then we have Christ, and then Christianity after that. Right? This Talmud is completely separate. And it talks about, as a Jew, how you commit crimes, how you can steal, murder, kill, break the law, yada, 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 very bad. And how you and I are goyim, and we're cattle and animals and beneath them. It's really an awful thing. But people are waking up to it and understanding it. In fact, now we have the crucifixion murder, right? There is a suspect been caught, and he admits that he has planned to kill 14 more Christian leaders. This is a guy, I believe, who killed a pastor, a Christian, right? Crucified him. Well, this guy in his mugshot, you can see he's got Jewish tattoos. And he hates Christians. So not only do we have a Muslim superiority issue, we have other problems from other countries, like the Sikh up in Canada. Oh, Canada, right? That one tall, skinny, dumb motherfucker with his turban wrapped too tight. He's Sikh. which is a religion that's based in India, they are anti-American. This Jewish guy is anti-American, and it appears there's a lot more of them out there. In other words, folks, I'm not saying hate them. I'm not saying commit crimes. I'm saying we all need to wake up and stop accepting the propaganda and start learning who it is that we're trying to coexist with. Right? I think that we as Americans, we as Christians have been very forgiving, very tolerant. The very things they claim we should have been, right? For the homos and everyone else as well. And then it turns out that they all hate us. The LGBTQ crowd, they want to steal your children and convert them and groom them, turn them into trannies, and then use them sexually, right? The Muslims, they're lying about their game. It appears that Talmudic Jews have their own game plan. They're just using America, the nation of Israel, for wars. The people hate us and they think that we're cattle. It's hard to believe that people think that. And then they like to point at all of us people with white skin or all of us people who are Americans and accuse us of being less than them. They're superior to us, right? And it's funny. There's Jewish pride. There's black pride. There's Mexican pride. Everyone gets pride except for Americans. We're not allowed to be proud of our country, not allowed to be proud of our heritage, our races, our culture. They're stealing that all from us. These people suck. In other words, that's crazy world, folks. And I think that the more we learn, the more we'll be exposed. And the more that's exposed, the more people can learn and believe it. I'm not calling for anyone to be violently attacked. What I'm saying is we just need to keep waking up. That red pill, it gets a little spicy sometimes. Mr. Uman, who's next on Free for All Friday? Let's get into it. This is good. You guys had some great topics. Mikey G said, did SCOTUS rule about machine guns becoming legal again? I noticed something out there about court decisions, bureaucratic interpretations, and silencers, etc. I don't have any solid information on fully automatic weapons being ruled legal. I think that would have probably caused the entire internet to explode if something like that had happened. But I know that there's a lot of people continuing to push for it. Because in this funny little book, thank you, Mr. Uman. In this funny little book here, we got the Second Amendment. And I do want that comment on Javier Milei brought back up, please, once we get through this here. Yeah, let's see, Articles of Confederation. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Crazy business. The Constitution. It's a small little thing, right? In the Bill of Rights, we have the Second Amendment. There we go. Let me read this and see if it's difficult to interpret. A well-regulated militia, and the courts have ruled consistently, the militia is me and you, the people. So a well-regulated militia. Regulated doesn't mean controlled by the government. Regulated means well-practiced. Regulation means practiced, right? So a well-practiced people, being necessary to the security of a free state. The state is both the state you live in and the United States. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right. You see, once again, government has authority. Government does not have rights. Only people have rights. And I know that people love to throw around the word rights. Even courts like to say the government has the right. No, government has authority. Now, when governments talk to each other, they talk from the perspective of a sovereign nation to a sovereign nation. But sovereign nations only act on the authority of their people or the authority of their dictator, whatever it is. But it's authority. God grants rights to people. God doesn't accept and acknowledge governments. Governments are instituted amongst men for various purposes. Our government in the United States of America was instituted amongst us to protect us from other countries, to protect us from our own government. That's a big part of the Constitution, and to protect us and help us work with each other. Now, let's get into this gun thing on Javier Milei, down president of Argentina. Uman says, I heard Javier Milei is expanding gun rights. He is. He's lifting restrictions on semi-automatic weapons. Uman says, pretty soon Argentina might be more free than we are. I would fit right in Argentina. I know that most people don't realize that throughout the early and mid 1900s, a lot of Europeans, especially Austrians and Germans, migrated, left Europe, and went to Argentina. There are alpine villages that look like they could come out of the Alps, right? Alpine Alps, Germany, Bavaria, Switzerland, right? That's what it looks like down there. The people, there were indigenous peoples, of course, living in Argentina, but they have interbred with white Europeans long enough that they have, maybe not this blonde, but some of them, yes, blonde hair, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, varying shades of skin tone. The Argentinians are a very diverse people in one aspect. That would be genetically, but they're a very civilized culture. The problem is they got the same problem we do here, if I may, and that is that a good portion of the country wants to be socialist, and Argentina's gone back and forth on this socialist, not socialist thing. Where Javier Milei comes in, Javier the Chainsaw Milei, is he was elected to be the president of the country. On his promise, he promised, and he fulfilled that promise by eliminating government spending and cutting out bureaucracy, regulation, taxes, etc. In various areas. Other places he's raised taxes. They have paid down their national debt, not 100%, but to a large degree. And another statistic came out today that in Argentina, the number of people that are in the poor category, in other words, people with the poorest income level, that has been reduced dramatically. In other words, because they've cut regulation, because they've cut taxes, because they've cut spending, Argentina, the poorest there, are no longer poor. In other words, their middle class is growing and expanding. That's what America needs, for fuck's sake. And now Javier Milei is looking into guns. Guns, lifting restrictions on semi-automatic weapons. Now, in the country of Switzerland, everyone can have a gun, I believe is required to be trained with a gun. And the government, I think, even gives people guns. And people don't talk about Switzerland being heavily armed by the people. Right? Now, of course, there's far more Americans than Swiss. And we tend to keep in our minds as Americans, the reason for having guns is to fight our own government, should it become necessary, as well as protect the state. Because we take an oath to defend against all enemies, both foreign and domestic enemies. And now we've got a shit pile of domestic enemies, do we not? Well, Switzerland's guns are for defending against invasion from other countries. And Javier Milei, he is expanding gun rights and the belief that, yes, people can have guns. The only people who disobey and commit crimes with guns are criminals. So Javier Milei is probably going to do more and more that he can to reduce crime. Reducing crime promotes prosperity. Right? Reducing crime increases the wealth level of the country. Reducing government regulation increases productivity in the country. So they're doing a great job down in Argentina. And I've considered moving there, folks, except the United States of America is my homeland. If I were to go to Argentina, I would end up showing up with a suitcase and just I would be they would be like, who's this rabble, right? Who's this guy? He's got nothing. He shows up, doesn't speak whatever language they speak down there. It's crazy business. In any event, let's continue if we shall. Mr. Uman, who's up next? We got a few minutes left in the show. Plenty of time to talk to you guys. Get your questions down below. We got Do Stuff with Nikki. And she says, made it. Howdy from the home of Gator Alcatraz. That's right. Alligator Alcatraz. The memes are now coming out. Alligators wearing baseball hats that have ice on there. Yeah. Nikki is down here in Florida. And she says, I can see the watch Juan try to escape memes now. Oh, yeah. Putting a large detention facility out in the middle of the Everglades, having them surrounded by vicious alligators, I think would be wonderful. Because of my experience with the corrections facilities in California, I came to learn that they're usually put out in the country. There's no room in a city for a prison like there is out in the country. And California has a lot of state prisons. Is the people that end up in prison have no clue about wildlife. So prison guards that I spoke with used to tell them, oh, yeah, we got mountain lions and coyotes and dinosaurs, and there's a rattlesnake behind every bush. The prisoners were actually afraid of the concept at many prisons of escaping, because they believed they would have to run through the wilderness and they could be attacked by a bear, a lion, a cheetah, a wild rabid giraffe, of course, always coyotes and Bigfoot. So I love that Florida actually has alligators. And I'm just fingers crossed that they actually say, yeah, I think that'd be a great deterrent, knowing that you're going to be in a prison surrounded by gators. I believe Louisiana, they're famous for their penal system, where prisoners, they really don't have fences around a lot of the areas that they're kept in, because they're surrounded completely and totally by swamps. And there's water moccasins, cottonmouths, gators, as well as various other people. And if you get past them, well, now you're going to deal with, raging Cajuns in the swamp that'll probably shoot your ass and barbecue you if you get too far. In any event, good stuff. Thank you, Nikki. I can't wait. No one escapes from Alligator Alcatraz. Yep, no one will, including that Juan from California. No, that was Jose, Senator Jose. And after it was explained to him how the Constitution works, someone said, Jose, can you see? Oh, it's got to be Friday. I need a scotch. I need a scotch in a big way. Unfortunately, I don't have any in the studio, but I will on Sunday Night Live when I'm back here live with you guys. I'm going to pay attention over the weekend, take notes, and I want you guys here at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there or be square. But for now, let's have some fun. Mr. Uman, who's up next? We've got U.S. Viking Warrior, this guy. And he says, hey, does the ruling affect past anchor babies or just going forward? Now, here's the deal. This is my opinion, but I think it falls in line, Mr. Viking. It falls in line with standard intellectual jurisprudence. If they don't qualify today as American citizens, then the law never qualified them as American citizens. They may have been born in the country. There may be a birth certificate that just says where you were born, who your parents were, what the dates were, et cetera, the address, but that does not make you a U.S. citizen. It does not make you a natural-born citizen. You're an American-born foreign national. So, yes, it does affect past anchor babies. They don't get a pass, right? They get a decision that affects them all. And that's how I see that. They really need to look at all of them and say, get the fuck out of here. Unless, right, they have a green card or they apply for a green card, demonstrate that they should be in the country and have a special work visa. Right? That's fine. It's I've watched videos of people from Europeans. I think the one that sticks out in my mind the most was a Swedish couple, and they just wanted to visit Puerto Rico. And they were in the Caribbean, and they wanted to visit Puerto Rico. They had to make a special trip to go in and apply for just a visitor's pass, right? Not a work visa, not a student visa, but it was very difficult. They had to go in and they got a very limited tourism and travel visa. But maybe that's because they're from Sweden. Whereas if you're from Mexico or Central America, I guess we're supposed to let them in and squirt a few babies out and then say, welcome to America. Here's your welfare the rest of your life. Fuck that. And it's being fixed. I really need Trump to take advantage of this and just hammer it. Don't you agree? I would like to see Trump hammer Pam Bondi or spanker, if you will, and say, Epstein list out. Arrest Epstein clients now. That would restore my faith in where this country is going in a big fucking hurry. Same with Cash Patel. Cash, let's get on it. No more bullshit and excuses. John Toon, you're out of the fucking way. Vice President J.D. Vance. Hey, look, J.D., Semper Fi, brother to brother. Trump has got the presidency pretty much locked up for the next 3.5 fucking years. I need you to go to the Senate and clean fucking house. Knife hand, activated. How hard is it, right? You see, that's just it. You and I don't have authority. We have our personal rights, but we don't have government authority. So we can't fix any of this. The government has been authorized by us via various national and, of course, state constitutions. They are authorized. They are given authority to fix things, to make things better. And they need to fucking do it for once. So I'm hoping these rulings by the Supreme Court, maybe someone had a little talk with them. Maybe they got taken out to the woodshed and said, hey, by the way, this whole Constitution thing, it matters. You are pissing off John and the rest of these fucking Vikings and fucking warriors and juggernaut, right? The American people, it's our country. They need to start obeying the rules, enforcing the rules, or there's going to be a civil war. I guess we're going to see. Anyways, great crowd today. Great comments and questions, thoughts. Ooh, man, where are we going next? We've got Redneck Roughneck. He's checking back in, and he says, I've seen several Democrats claim that these illegal aliens have come here and have never committed a crime. Asking of the Democrats, did they forget that crossing the border or overstaying a visa is a crime? Oh, it is. It absolutely is. They have violated our national laws by coming in illegally, and if they have overstayed their work, visit, or school visa, well, you have now violated the terms of the agreement. Right? If the terms of the agreement says you are supposed to leave by such and such a date and you don't, you're now in violation of those terms. Right? You have now violated our national policy. That is a criminal offense. If I sign a fucking document at the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and I lie, that is perjury. That is a federal crime. It's a felony. If I go to buy a gun and I fill out the paperwork and I lie on the paperwork, that's perjury. It's a federal crime. It's a felony. These fucking people sign on the line. I will fucking leave by such and such a time. They have made a statement, right? It's like raising your hand and taking an oath. You made a statement. You have violated the terms of the agreement. You're now in criminal violation. Now, the Democrats like to pretend and go, wow, it's not really a crime. Actually, it is. They tried saying it's like a traffic violation. It's a citation. Well, no, that's mala in prohibita. A crime is mala in se. A crime has been committed. There is damage to parties. The United States, in this case, is the party responsible for the border, and they have suffered a damage, right? Someone has stepped over the line without permission. Just like someone going to your property and stepping onto your property is a criminal trespass. Criminal trespass. It's a crime. You injured a blade of my grass. It's just some grass. It's my grass, and you injured it. That's the crime. Okay, let's continue if we shall. Enough of the Latin there. Robin G says, hey, what about the grandchildren of illegals? This gets complicated all of a sudden. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It really does. So let's do the look back game. Okay, so let's just say I'm an illegal alien. I came here in 1980, right? And I had children in 1985, and they were anchor babies, so I'm not a citizen, but my kids supposedly were. And then they had children, and their kids supposedly are. Well, I am here illegally in this scenario. Someone don't call the fucking cops on me, please. Anyways, I'm illegal, and therefore my children are not citizens. So we have a second generation living illegally within the country, and then they have children. So an illegal having illegals that has more illegal children, grandchildren, they are all here illegally, right? You don't get a pass. You don't get a squatter's rights. In other words, that's essentially what the illegals are trying to claim for themselves through their Democrat politicians and media bullshit spin masters. They're trying to say, well, we're squatters, or I've lived here long enough that now I must be a citizen. No, it's not how this works. It's not how this works. You violated at one point the law. And so everything from that point forward is now unlawful or illegal, and it needs to be remedied. The remedy is you are taken out of the country. You are shown the door. You don't get to claim to be an American. You don't get to collect welfare. You don't cast go and get $200. You're done. And that is going to take quite a bit of time. As you stated, it is complicated. But at the fundamental level, right? Let me try this one. How about I'm a bank robber. I committed a crime. I look around and go, holy shit. I robbed the bank and I got the money. And I go to my son and I hand him the bag of money. I'm like, there, right? The government finds me years later and goes, John, you robbed that bank. You are a criminal. We want the money back. I mean, like, I don't have the money anymore. But they go, well, your kid has it, right? And I'm like, yeah, well, that's illegal. He has stolen money. He has received stolen goods. He is a criminal. So the police, the Keystone cops, they put on their goofy Keystone cop helmet, and they go over to my son's house. And they bang on the door, right? And they go, hey, kiddo, get out here. And they go out and go, well, he comes out and goes, yeah, my dad gave me the money, but I gave it to my kids. I gave it to his grandkids. And they're like, well, let's put the cuffs on you. You received stolen property, right? Knowingly received stolen property, money from bank robbery. But now his kids have the money. They too have received stolen property. They knew it was stolen. They knew that their dad got it. They knew that I got it illegally. So they have accepted stolen property, stolen money from a bank heist. Everyone has committed a crime along the way. No one gets a pass by going, well, I've had the money for 10 years. Well, I've had the money for 5 years. I've had the money for 20 years. So it must be legal now. No. Just having stolen money or property doesn't go away. Oh, this whole statute of limitations thing, right? They want to, I'm sure that argument's going to come up at some point. Well, they've been here long enough. The statute of limitations. There is no statute of limitations on citizenship. There are citizenship requirements for naturalization, becoming a citizen if you're not a citizen. In any event, let's continue. These are great topics, lots of fun. And Redneck Roughneck says, I think they should be returned with their parents, then offered the opportunity to become a citizen if they are not a criminal and are willing to assimilate. We're going to have problems with that too, Mr. Roughneck. I understand that we all want to be fair as Americans. We all want to be nice. This country was built by immigrants. No, this country was built by people fleeing tyranny in Europe, England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden as well. Those people escaped and they colonized wild lands. Okay. And yes, then we did have waves of immigrants coming, waves from Italy, Ireland, Germany, the Pennsylvania Dutch. They're fucking Germans. But they tried saying they're Dutch so they get away from the stigma of World War I. Yes, World War I. In any event, it's a great topic, right? If they're not a criminal. Well, the best way to determine if they're a criminal is this right here. Okay, attention, all illegal aliens. You have 1 week to turn yourselves into the authorities and admit you have committed the crime of being here illegally. Now they come and admit to being a criminal, right? Hey, be honest. You're here illegally. Great. We appreciate the fact that you have noted this. It's not open border season with Democrats anymore. So you want to assimilate? You want to be an American? You get to get the fuck out and go back through the process. Now, hear me out on this. Out of the country. Go back to wherever the fuck you're from and apply for citizenship. Right? When you do that, who do you know? Where do you want to live? Do you have a job? Right? A lot of these people have jobs. Great. Put all that down. I have a job at ABC Farms or XYZ Manufacturing or fucking Home Depot. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Right? I had that job. Right? I've got family. I've got a lot of people who can vouch for me that I'm not a criminal. Right? They've got friends up here, Americans. Who do you know that's an American? They can vouch for, right? All of these ways that normal people migrate and come in. And then you go through the migration process, which includes learning the Constitution, right? A citizenship test. My concrete contractor here in Florida is now an American citizen. I think I announced this several weeks ago that he was going to take his test. He came here lawfully. He went through the citizenship process. He's taken the test, and now he's an American citizen. But he's been paying taxes the whole time. He's not a criminal. He stayed out of trouble. He's a good guy. But he's now an American. And that is just a wonderful thing. He has assimilated. He's not a fucking drug dealer. He's not a scumbag. And he's helping others do the same thing. And that's how it needs to be. Literally. But you've got to go back and get them the fuck out and start again. Unless there's some other process they come up with. Uman says they should get some sort of prioritization for immigration. I agree. I'm not anti-immigration. I'm anti-communist. I'm anti-Muslim because of what they have stated with their own lips, not words I made up. These foreigners that hate America, hate white people, hate Christians. No, absolutely not. They hate capitalism. They hate our flag. They hate. No. These people that come here and want to change everything. We want Sharia law. That's not law. That is gang rules for raping women and stealing property and screwing goats and whatever else those fucking people want to do. Anyways, if they are productive, yeah, definitely. Not committed any other serious crimes, right. If their one crime was illegally coming across the border because they were told it was fine by the government of Biden, fine. If they're not welfare cases, great. once again, right, that comes through people they know, family, friends, people that can vouch for them. That's great. I'm all for it. Thank you, Mr. Uman. And what the heck? The hour's up. I'm going to see you guys Sunday Night Live. I think some crazy shit's going to happen this weekend. The riots have stopped, huh, in L.A., the stupid, because they said we're going to come after those that have funded it. And now the Supreme Court has said president can cut all that funding 100%. No more American tax dollars going to corporations, NGOs, offshore, who then fund and buy bricks and pay these fucking protesters. That doesn't mean the left has quit. They're going to pull more shit. Trust me on that, folks, because chance favors the prepared mind is yours. I'll see you Sunday Night Live, and go to thepreparedmind.club and please get prepared. I'll see you guys soon.